Okay, so I think we're going to talk about the context behind this library and all of that as we go along. But I think we should just jump in. What is this? How does it work? And I've only had a day with it, Cam, so I'd appreciate a tour to also check if I've got the user manual right as well.
Yeah, this is Concussion drums. It's our take on what a drum library should be as opposed to what they are. So instead of preset drums or in certain keys sounding a certain way, we give that full tool set to people to craft their own kits, as well as it comes stock with a bunch of great sounding things as well.
Yeah, I think there's something interesting about drum libraries is you're either using a kind of orchestral template or rompler to play libraries, or you're using drum kit libraries. I think there's a more holistic approach. I think the other thing people tend to do is if you put drums into an orchestral GUI, people tend to be a little bit kind of hesitant about producing them.
Yeah.
And I think that when you're using drum kit libraries, people tend to use their suite of plugins, things that they've gathered over the years. What I'm excited about is we've created a self-contained environment so that people can actually exchange MIDI regardless of DAWs and this, that, and the other, not to mention presets.
Yeah, well, as we painstakingly had to count the other day, there's over 1,000 parameters that you can tweak, which sounds showboaty, but it's actually there. And we know that because we hit the limits of modern technology. But you said, like with orchestral drums, the thing that always felt almost demeaning to the instrument or didn't do like instruments justice, like drums, is you load your kick drum or your tom or your grand casa and there's just one key, but we've got a full MIDI keyboard in front of us and there's lots of options here. So to load an instance of something and to load a preset just to have one key available just felt really unmusical. We want people to be able to play this thing with their elbows.
As I often do. Shall we just jump in? Now, usually with these library walkthroughs, people tend to go through all the sounds.
Yes.
But I think it's important to maybe give a context of this environment. We've been going on and on about a playground. So I think that maybe we can have a quick look at all of the sounds which are available, which is, it's kind of like an encyclopedic collection of everything you would need, from kits to large orchestral percussion to traditional instruments, but also to strings, which we'll come back to.
So there's a few ways to load sounds. I won't give spoilers just yet, but if we just click one of the slots, we get our browser. On the left-hand side, you have our categories. So we have kits, which is sort of traditional drum kit sounds, kick, several sizes of snare. We have several kicks as well, a variety of sizes of toms. Every single type of sound has a variety of options. So if you click the drop down, if you use snare, for example, which has probably got the most, you can have a strike, cross stick, rim shot, flam, rough and roll. So we can give examples of those. So strike, which is 3 players hitting the drum with 1 stick simultaneously. Cross stick, rim shot, flam, so we have flams for every single type of drum, and that's the 3 drummers using both sticks with a little bit of latency between them. Rough, so a little performance, which is really useful to sort of pre-delay hits, and rolls. Then we have concerts, another huge category where we have all our more traditional drums. So concert toms, grand casa, some more 80s classics like octobands, rototoms, as well as a Mahler hammer, which we worked out's quite loud.
I wasn't there for that bit. Was it really loud?
The person playing it had wore 2 ear defenders over a woolly hat as well, but it was winter we recorded this. Everyone else had to vacate the room because you could see the airwaves sort of move the dust of the room.
Really?
So it's quite impressive. Traditional, where we go through some of our more folk-based drums. So we have sodos, which I believe come out of Brazil, taikos from Japan, start going to djembes, darbukas.
I always get terrified when I see the word djembe. It always means a party that I'm at is about to go south.
What's interesting with the way we've done these things is that the most unassuming drums are the most epic sounding.
Really?
So just because we're here. So we go djembe.
Wow.
It doesn't sound like someone's about to bring out an acoustic guitar. Baurans are quite an interesting category because instead of 3 players, we had a 6-person ensemble.
Which just never happens with barons.
Yeah, we sort of had to ship people in for it, but they had the most fun, to be honest. So it's 4 quite a small handheld Celtic drum, we've gone pretty widescreen with it. Frame drum, congas, bongos, caons, and
my favorite,
your favorite thing possible, sticks.
I'm so into my folk horror. This is.
And it was the one that everyone looked at us most strangely when we requested it, as we had a room full of hundreds of drums and we're put those aside. Can you just hit those sticks for a second? To complement the kit, we have a whole host of cymbals, playing all the articulations you would expect. So hi-hats, all the sort of degrees of tightness, chokes, hits, bells, everything you'd expect from cymbals. Then we get to our more esoteric categories. The Crow Hill gang got together, went to Screwfix, and B&Q. For those around the world, I guess that's, I don't know what the equivalent would be in America. Home Depot.
There
we go.
There you go.
And spent a slightly upsetting amount of money and got some really strange looks because we bought storage containers, bins, saws, metal pipes, plastic pipes, window glazing. And
it's basically a gangland kind of mass murder kill.
At the checkout, the gentleman there wanted to wish us luck on our home renovation project and looked at what we got and was like, I want to wish you luck, but I'm worried.
Shallow grave.
Yeah, we have a whole selection of different types of metals, including my favorite, which we had an ensemble of jerry cans, which I was very happy with. All the way down to
genuinely the first time I've been playing these. It's not me just kind of feigning orgasm.
All the way down from brake drums, which are literally just carb wheels with the brakes still attached, taken from a scrapyard and not from someone's driveway. Attic category is where we have our miscellaneous stuff, from cardboard box ensembles to plant pots.
Can I hear the PVC pipes?
You can hear the PVC pipes. It's epic Blue Man Group. All the way down to, we ended, bodies should really be clarified. That's where we have our claps. And smacks. Smacking themselves, it wasn't.
Yeah, it never sounds like.
Yeah, it's never.
So why don't we come back to strings? Because
I think we should.
I think this was a request that I put in. I've basically spent the last 2 years working on a project for Apple. Every single episode had at least 2 chase sequences, and I discovered a way of taking drums to 11, and it's with strings. But we'll come back to that in a sec. So it's recorded in Assumption Hall, which is kind of halfway between Ayr and Abbey Road, would you say?
Yeah. So it's quite controllable. What's quite good for percussion, it means we didn't have so much bloom. So our close mic's really close, which I can show in a minute. So if we keep our toms loaded, everything's got 3 signals. And before we start getting emails, everything has the velocity layers and round robins you would expect. We really hate being the whole men's razor thing, talking about specs, but it's what you'd expect, if not more. But we have these 3 stereo mic positions. So we have close, which is really impactful and close. Yeah. And something that I'm really proud that we did was, instead of a typical workflow for making a sample library where you would sort of take your recordings, someone would mix them, and then you would put it into software, every single drum had its own mix process. So what we realized is that drums don't sound that epic by themselves.
No.
They have all these resonances, which are really unappealing. And people do things like they put kitchen towels or blankets over the drum. They put little rubber things, moon gels, to try dampen the resonances. What we did was we really aggressively mixed every drum separately.
What I love about this close signal is, so often with these libraries, the close signal sounds almost divorced. You have to use it with another signal. It sounds like it's in a vacuum.
Yeah, what I really like what we did here, when you see we've got a close signal, we've still got some of the early reflections from the hall, so it's far more widescreen than you would expect with like a clip-on mic. We have our wide, which is our next array of mics, so that's more of traditional Decca, which is where you start leaning into that larger London hall type sound, where you start to lose some of the transients, but you really get that width. And then our ambient, which is our furthest away microphones. They're really tall, really far back in the hall, so there's no transients at all. And you're just getting the bloom.
And ideal for your surround LSRS feeds. Why just 3 microphones?
Because you really don't need any more. As we discovered in a project we did last year, that very much the Hollywood standard for bespoke virtual instruments is 3 signals, because that's what's utilized.
Okay, so Cam, take me through the concept. I can see that there are 8 boxes here, or bays if you like, which you can load drums into. What is the thinking?
Firstly, I'm annoyed you've said bays, because that's a better name, because I've been calling them tracks. Yes, so we have these 8 identical bays that allow you to load any drum into any of them. That way you can create your own kit if you want, kick, snare, toms, hats, or you can layer drums atop of one another. So if you want toms and snares playing at the same time, or if you want to stretch them or place them different places in your keyboard, you can do what you want, build your own kit. And we chose 8 because that's the standard configuration for a rock kit, once you have kick, snare, toms, and cymbals. So
again, blending the 2 worlds of the orchestral and what is learned from rock. I think it's probably worth just going through these 4 different panels that you have to play with to show that it's all about a signal path you don't have to understand, but something that creates this self-contained environment in which to play with your drums.
Yeah, so this is the home page where you have access to expression, which is your global volume, dynamics, which you see is bypass just now. That allows you to decide whether you're playing your drums via velocity on your MIDI controller, or if you want to negate velocity and use a MIDI CC, for example, if you've got quite a small keyboard.
So if you go like that, and I see. And then that dynamic will change the curve.
Yeah. This top panel here is a mixture of utilities and possibly the funnest thing in the product. We have curve, which lets you adjust your velocity curve. So if you want to hit quieter dynamics at a harder velocity on your keyboard, you can either type in a value there, or you can adjust the curve here. Really important for drums where you want to be able to get that feel in. Noise, because it's a bit of a calling card for us, because we have it in a bunch of things. It lets you bring in the room tone from the actual recordings, again, because digital silence does not belong in music.
No. And I would recommend only using it on one instance of Concussion.
Yes, because we did spend a lot of time getting rid of the noise just to tap it back in. So you can either deactivate or activate your bay, choose what range it appears in your keyboard. Everything's color-coded. Adjust the volume. Or if you just click the name of the instrument, that brings up the browser. What we put in very last minute, but we're excited about, instead of having to go through each of these one by one, when the browser's open, you can go through your different bays here. So it's really quick to create your own kit.
Great.
So that's the homepage. Kind of covers most of the things you want to do. But if you want to start getting naughty, you can go to the next page.
Oh, yeah.
Now we have our mixer page. So again, we have our toms loaded. You can bypass up here, load the preset browser up here, and have some basic controls here. So you can affect your bay here. So you can alter the volume, make sure signal is actually passing here. You probably want it to be read with this style of library, but still. There you go. Solo mute the track, something very cheeky. Here you can choose the actual output for each track, something that I know if we didn't put in, everyone would have asked for. So if you have your 8 tracks, you can choose all 8 to go through different 8 stereo outs, and then use your own effects if you want. We hope you've included all the effects you might need, but if there's a plugin you absolutely love, or some weird mixing thing that you want to do that we haven't thought of, you're able to route everything out of the plugin, which is very useful. We have a very interesting way of panning. So we have normal, left, right, just like you'd expect, or option click to reset on Mac. But above it is a nice little XY pad. So you can pan, again, moving this left and right, or you can move it up and down, and it affects the perception of distance by changing the stereo processing. So closer towards you, it starts to fold to mono, but doesn't phase cancel. And as you move it further away, there's some MS processing, mid-side processing.
Wow.
To make it a bit more stereo.
Get away from that dialogue track.
Yeah. And you can option click it to reset it. But that lets you very quickly and playfully place your drums in a space. Next, we have our settings page. So this is where you can affect the pitch.
And again, these are independent. So
independent per track, yeah.
Yeah, per track. So you load it into a bay. It has its own track, its own signal path that's totally independent of the other drums.
Yeah, to the point that you could load this low tom strike into all 8 bays and pitch them all differently if you are so mental. Pitch or focus, which I'm really happy with. So
let's hear the pitch first. I think this exemplifies something that we've done with this, which is to make it virtually impossible to make it sound bad.
Yes.
So basically, the controls are nuanced and useful. So it's not like you kind of go like that and then it's just silly.
Yeah, for example, the pitch drops 6 semitones, but when we actually did our editing, we pitch shifted down 6 semitones to make sure it was still tight. So it's not a case that you pitch shifted down, you hit a key and you have to wait. Yeah. So we've tried to account, because I'll catch myself out here, for all eventualities. Yeah, and then we have focus. So focus is a frequency shifter, which is really exciting because it also affects the pitch, but in a slightly more musical way.
Okay.
So changing the pitch in virtual instruments effectively is just changing the sample rate. You're speeding up or you're slowing down the file. And if you slow down a file, the strike of the stick hitting the skin just becomes smushed.
Kind of muddy.
Yeah, you lose that impact. Frequency shifting just shifts the actual frequencies. So if there is a snap at the beginning, the snap stays there. So I'll move this. It should drop the frequency. Eventually it'll feed back in itself, but it also should stay quite transient. So it's more like you've detuned the drum.
It sounds like a floppy.
Yes, it goes very floppy.
That's amazing. I won't ask how you did that.
No. Then the most unassuming part, but possibly the most fancy part or the most useful part of the instruments up here. So I'll go from less interesting to more impressive. We have a line which lets you pre-delay the file. So up to 100 milliseconds, you can add more of the actual recording time. So when I hit a key now, that strike will occur 100 milliseconds after I've actually hit the MIDI.
So the way I would work with this is play it in super tight, adjust that, and then put a pre-delay on your track on your door.
So it's a way a lot of pro composers work. It lets you have that swoosh of the stick coming down, which really, really helps for realism.
And the amount that you delay it by will be the amount that you pre-delay on your thing.
Yes, so you have up to 100 milliseconds. Yeah. Really, because any more than that, if you wanted to play it becomes incredibly unwieldy.
Yeah.
That's really useful. Then my favorite bit, tracking. For people not as obsessed with synths as I am, tracking is how much the pitch changes based on the key you play on your keyboard. It's become a science class. As you can see with our Prince theme of colors at the bottom, we have our one tom stretched across a bunch of keys. If I have tracking switched off, no matter what key I hit, it's going to be the same pitch. If I switch tracking on, and if I turn it all the way up to a really untasteful 100%.
And that's a great example of what happens when you pitch.
Things get, yes. So 100% is now chromatic, which is if someone wants to stretch a sample, what it would be like. Tracking lets you choose how much of that is actually applied. So 20% is my favorite. Now the lowest and highest is far more musically related to each other, and it means if you start flamming your hands on the keyboard, our 3 players now sound like 9.
So if I were to take tracking off, it sounds like more like an ensemble than,
because there's a 20% pitch difference between the lowest and highest note now. So when you start playing neighboring notes, it does feel like it's 2 different drums that they've tried to tune it at the same time, but they've had a pint beforehand. And then we have range. So that's where it actually appears on your keyboard. So you can either click the drop down and choose, or what we really like to do is use the record button. So tap this, choose the lowest key you want and the highest key you want.
Wow.
And now it appears on that. And with tracking active, the middle key in that range, which is probably about here, will always be the root pitch, and then it'll pitch down and pitch up.
Fantastic. And basically, these different tracks can overlap as well?
They can overlap, live side by side, anything in that visible keyboard range. So let me just put this back to something a bit chunkier.
And when it says 20%, it basically calculates 20% between...
Yes, between
the tracking
notes.
is 20.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So the amount that you allow, the range, will also affect how it tracks.
Yeah. So 100% being equal temperament.
Okay. So we missed something.
We did miss
back here, which is augment.
We did, and I think I need to choose it an interesting sound for it because I can go through these 3 kick drums. So I've chosen a kick drum for this because we have 3 kicks to choose from, which is interesting. But augment is something that we decided about halfway through would be really fun to put in. So we made this thing called Demon Drop.
Yeah.
You and I had a lot of fun making it. And the main theme of it was electronic drums. And while we were making it, we made some really cool drum sounds. So the idea with augment is how can we incorporate that synthetic drum world into very acoustic. It's 3 kick drums in a big hall. How can we incorporate those things together? So let me go mainly close for this. So we're a little bit less flammy. Augment will add an analog synth behind whatever you're playing. And every sound has its own augment layer. And it's 3 sine waves, basically. 1 for the body and the pitch, and 2 doing frequency modulation to try sound like the instrument. So if I go through the kick, suddenly we have this strange EDM hybrid.
And now, can you hear the synths on their own?
No, we've deliberately made sure that you have to layer it with the acoustic sounds
because they're designed to layer. They're not a standalone.
No, by themselves, some of them are really. I think the technical term is farty.
Okay.
They sound best when layered together. By themselves, that they're slightly less impressive. But again, if I go with the kicks, so we have a really nice kick in a hall, and you start adding augment. And you get this massive bass, and without it. And we have augment for the strikes, the roughs, the rolls, which sound really bizarre by themselves. Got a synth trying to do a roll. So we have our darbukas. And if we add augment to it, it just adds oomph. It doesn't sound like someone's just switched on a Moog beside you. It's what you'd expect like a widescreen drum to sound like, but we've done it for you.
It's just such a good idea.
Let me go back to our
and this is a great example of this slightly multidiscipline approach we've had to adopt with drum libraries. Mixing up what we've learned with hip hop and EDM and rock alongside orchestral sampling. Yeah, it's a hybrid way of working that requires a hybrid workflow, which is now being removed with this.
Yeah, it's actually, this was very influenced from our editor Kieran. I'm giving him a shout out. He's very much a metal kid and in that world, and does a lot of production in that world. And something that strangely that metal and rock drums do is they get these one-shot samples and layer it over the kick drums and the snares to make everything beefier.
Yeah.
And it's very much mixed with the live recording just to get that body you can't really get from an acoustic sound. So it's us having that all encapsulated in this lets you create a monster if you want, or a nice little delicate acoustic thing if you want.
And I know where we're going next is, again, to take us into this hybrid process and indeed processing.
Yes, so that was our mix page. We then have our channel strip, very much based layout-wise of some 500 series units people might be familiar with.
When you've got different stuff here as well.
Yeah, different subpages as well. So this lets you affect each bay or track with some basic controls. I say basic, as you said, we've curated each control to not sound bad. So a good example of this is a filter. Even if you completely high pass a sound, a normal filter would take you to silence. We've chosen a complementary sound for every drum. You still want the transients. So we can go high pass, low pass. On every drum.
I'll tell you what, I'll play a new sweep. And these are all automatable?
Everything's automatable. So there's we have 1,000 parameters. It's about 500 are automatable. If anyone wants to automate them all at once, get in touch and we'll send you a star or something. We have our air control, which is an EQ named after a famous EQ that has an air control.
It's a blue one.
There's a blue one over there. So it's really the top frequencies. It's the sheen.
amazing.
As we learned when we're working on this, you think widescreen trailer drums, you think, oh, it's all about the bass and body, but really it's the high end, so it can punch through in people's iPhones. So we made sure we had that, but it's not as fun as having sub.
Oh yeah.
So sub isn't an EQ, it is actually a square wave synthesizer that pitch tracks.
Wow.
So we have another synth in this because it wouldn't be us if we didn't. So we have push, which is a compressor.
And you don't need to work it out. It's just a...
Yeah, it's almost like a slam compressor. It's based off a very famous British bus compressor. But one knob makes sound better.
Oxford, is it made in? Possibly?
Yeah, possibly. We then have click, which is a bi-directional control. So that's a transient designer.
Okay.
So we can...
So One Direction is...
a great band. Sorry. Going clockwise adds transients, going anti-clockwise removes them.
Okay.
So we can take away some transients.
Wow.
But we can add some. Bloom, which is, again, I keep saying every control is my favorite control. Bloom is an envelope shaper. So it doesn't take away or add transients, but it takes that blossoming of the hall and increases that volume. So it makes everything sound like it was recorded in a bigger space.
Wow.
So... which is quite a nice trick if you want it to sound bigger, but you really like the close signal being dominant in the mix. Mm-hmm. Instead of having to rely on further away microphones that have less transients, you can use Bloom just to make the actual volume of the late reflections louder.
What I'm really impressed by is just the level of control, which will mean a huge amount of pimping potential, for want of a better word, which is why when we talk about presets, I'm really excited about these, because it's a place where you can get lost, but also we're hoping by having a huge array of presets available, not only that we make, but that people share, that people would just be able to dive in and go, that's great, I'm just going to go with that sound, as opposed to having to spend time on it.
Yeah, and that's what goes our number one request, because we do listen. Our number one request is people wanting to be able to make presets in our instruments. So that's a core focus of this. But as you said, the presets are going to be very shareable, and we're going to encourage people to send these files we're aptly calling concussion files. We have our effects. So these are send effects. Very tastefully done, if I do say so myself. We have drive.
That's great.
It's subtle, and it's this filtered kind of analog warmth we're going for, but just lets you add a bit of hair to it. Then we have delay and space, which I'm going to show in more detail. So I'm just going to turn these up for now. You probably won't be able to hear them. I'll turn these up for now, and then we can go, because these are send effects, so you can choose the send of each bay, but then we're going to go to the effects page and see where they all end up.
Now, if you're sending stuff out of different outputs, it'll bypass this page.
Yeah, if you send stuff out, it will bypass the internal effects. So if you want to use your own delay or own reverb, you can. It's very much doable. So we have our three core effects. We have delay, space, and smash. I'm actually going to go through these backwards. Smash, which we've had switched on the whole time, so I'm actually going to switch it off to show the difference. So smash switched off.
Oh, wow.
And then smash switched on. For the DJs out there, it's a very similar compressor. It's definitely an EDM-based compressor. It's very much looked down on, but just makes widescreen music and trailer stuff really impactful. Because not only does it accentuate the entire signal, but it does this soft saturation on different frequency bands that just, it's the epification module.
What is it based on?
It's based on a compressor that comes in from a soft synth DJ. The compressor's called Over the Top. And there's so many replications of it, but it's a free compressor. It's inspired lots of other softer things, and it's inspired this. Again, we have a lot of graphical control over the knee and how it's being expanded, because we like things to look pretty.
And you've got different frequencies to do different...
Exactly.
It's a multi-band compressor.
Exactly.
And again, you don't have to understand this stuff. It's just fiddle with it.
Yeah, exactly. And we have our ins and outs. So again, if you just want to turn up the high... quite drastically change the sound and make it even more bombastic. Again, Option click resets everything back to some level of normality. So we have space, which is our reverb, some very simple controls at the bottom for the overall color of the signal, and then the amount of reflections. But in the middle here, we have a really fun tesseract.
A what?
We have this really fun tesseract type shape. It's a cubey thing that lets you change the return mix, the return signal, or the size by just clicking and dragging. So it will get duller in color as the mix is less prevalent, brighter when it's more. And as you can see in the bottom, we can go all the way up to a massive hall, or to maybe something a bit more... A bit more pleasant. Then we have our delay, which is incredibly fancy. I won't go into too much detail, but it's a multi-tap delay. Let's turn this up here. You can obviously change the filter, how many repeats, the actual time signature.
And I mean, what's great about this is, just as a reminder, is that the amount that you delay each individual track is done here. So basically, if you don't want masses of delay on your grand cassas, but want stuff on like your high bottles or hi-hats, then
it's not master. So you can change the rate if you want. But what makes this really special is it's multi-tap, which means you can control every single repeat. So we've got 3 ways of controlling it: the volume, pan, and filter. So I'm just going to quickly put in a pattern.
So basically these are the steps 1 through 8. So it goes 1 to 4, then 5 to 6 on the. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So you can quite quickly create.
So can you remind me, what are the different colours, the different hues of green doing?
Yes. So grey means that step's not triggered. A light green means it's triggered at 50%, so it's a bit quieter. And the bright green means it's a full trigger. So I can make a little pattern. Exact same logic. I can now go to the pan page and choose whether things are panned red for right or blue for not right. And I can pan each step left or right. And then you can go to filter, and I can choose how I'm actually filtering each step. So gray means it's not filtered. A dark orange means it's low passed, and a bright orange means it's high passed. So I can just put in some filters now. Make little cool little patterns, because why have a normal delay when you can have an over-the-top delay?
It's just a dream come true, and I'm terrified about how much time I'm going to waste getting into this. So, Cam, what I'd love to do is have those toms kind of here and the strings down here to demonstrate what on earth we're going on about including strings.
I'll actually do it from this page. So I'll go to strings, and what kind of string would you like?
Let's go for Collegno.
So I'm now just going to set the ranges. So you want your strings at the bottom, and then we have our toms. So now we have blue for strings and purple for toms.
So basically, what I've been doing with Collegno is making that the taking drums to 11. So I'm going to take this down in pitch. And combined with toms, what I'm going to do is also maybe whack some absolute muck onto it. Oh, that's what we're looking at. And then what I find is a great way of accenting toms. So you've got these busy maybe take a little bit of the push off, some sub, because I can, and then let's go here and just mix these. Which is kind of removes your fillings, and just takes it to that next level. And I think what's fun about it is it's not immediately identifiable as a string. So we did staccato as well.
Yeah.
Now, these have been multi-sampled by pitch.
Yes.
So how does the tracking affect?
So tracking isn't available for the strings. So that's
Okay,
all.
gotcha. That makes life a lot easier. And then we've got jeté, pizzicato.
And we've done Kaleni already. Then we have our Bartok.
Smack it! And again, let's just try that. Yeah. Oh yeah, giving away all of our secrets.
See, now I understand why you wanted strings. For 6 months, you've all been wondering why the strings were in here.
Yeah. And then a bit of tremolo too. Yeah. And why have we done that?
So the strings are 6 cellos, 6 bassists, and they were constantly instructed to try sound like a drum kit. So this is them doing rolls.
Absolutely sublime. And thank you for listening to me and doing the strings, because I think that is a brilliant thing to put into the pot for widescreen drums. But I think that we've saved the best to last, which is, again, talking about creating an environment, a playground. It's an ability to do some quite complicated production techniques without you getting completely tangled in your automation page.
Yes, so we have these key effects. So it's a little picture of a keyboard here. We have 12 different master processes that you can put on your drums. Oh. And you can play them in real time, click free. And to remember where each one is, you can just hover over the key. It tells you the key and what it is. But I think it's best we just go through them. Do you want to be drummer or producer?
I'll be drummer.
So we have a distortion, lo-fi, a compressor. And what's really nice is because it's MIDI, you can perform them. So delays, so you might want to do single hits, but we have normal straight 16ths and then triplets, a filter sweep,
and that'll go to your
everything sort of synced.
Yeah.
Yes, a filter sweep, my favorite one I'm going to say, which is freeze. So if we go one, so we can freeze the signal. What's really nice of that's at the beginning of the chain. So I can affect it, so I can filter sweep that frozen signal and use the compressor to change the volume and make weird sounds. We have a really tight flanger. An autopan, which is also host synced. And then we have 3 really interesting controls. So maybe I'll take this one because they're a bit odd, but they're all robo controls. So we have beat repeat,
tempo synced,
and that way you can play and you can repeat the last played sound. We have glitch, which is a really, really fast beat repeat. So silly by itself, but you can imagine me using it to have some fun. And then we have reverse, again host synced, but lets you reverse any sound you have without
baking it. And well, this is what I do: baking it, importing it, reversing it, and then
exactly. And because they're all MIDI playable, but you can go mental, so you can even freeze a sound, then glitch it, then pan it, then reverse it, and then filter it. You can do what you want.
I love it. And it just looks so gorgeous. I think that I'm just hoping that this really encourages people to explore and investigate and think out of the box with percussion. I think a lot of the problems with the homogeny that we're hearing in music these days is people tend to be, it just sounds great out of the box. So we're hearing a lot of similar sounds treated in a similar way. And what I love about this, I think a real Achilles heel for a lot of composers is this kind of hyped production. This is just a set of levers and knobs and switches that does cool stuff, that works with percussion, isn't something that's been grafted on, from an orchestral library or indeed a kit library.
Yeah.
And I think that the key thing here is presets. We're going to be releasing more, but also we've got a discourse channel, not Discord, a discourse channel, which is where our community, our network gets together, and we're hoping that people are going to start swapping presets around.
Yes, please.
And is this the last for Concussion? Will there be additions in the future?
We're very proud of what we put together here, so this is just the first of many.
Just to end on something that I'm really excited about is we've been referring to this as a workhorse library. The reason I'm really excited about this is since setting up Crow Hill, I haven't really been able to do the tutorials that I used to do when I was working at Spitfire, and that's because we didn't really have a workhorse library to work with. I think when working on action sequences, blockbuster style films and music, they tend to be the frog that we need to eat, the thing that we fear the most. And I would love to, over the forthcoming weeks and months, prove to you that actually drum programming, action sequences, there's nothing to be afraid of. There's something to be enjoyed hugely. So I'm going to be returning and using Concussion a lot to demonstrate these principles. What's fun about it is, regardless of what DAW you use, I'll be able to give you some MIDI and some presets, and you'll be able to pull it up and it'll sound the same. So there's going to be lots of interactive tutorials coming your way soon. So do subscribe if you haven't done already, and let me know what you'd like to learn about in the comments down below. Click on the links in the video description to go and grab a copy of Concussion, and also to join the Crow Hill network, exchange sounds, ideas, presets, that kind of stuff. Well done, Cameron. It's an absolute triumph. Was it fun? How many lines of code?
Oh, we're hundreds of thousands deep at this point. It's yes, it's one of these things where it's nice seeing it all come together, and it's something that you and I have done many projects together now, and this is the one I'm most proud of, because we've absolutely outdone ourselves, but also taken the piss with features.
Concussion, big fuck off drums, linked in the video description down below. Now fuck off, there's a rabbit hole waiting for you.